The crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves as Thomas Jenkins guided his daughter home from school. At 34, Thomas had mastered many of the challenges that came with being a single dad, but some days still felt like he was making it up as he went along. Today had been a good day, though. Lily had received a gold star for her drawing in art class, and her smile hadn't faded since. "Can we take the parkway, Daddy?" Lily asked, already tugging him toward their familiar shortcut. Her backpack, decorated with colorful buttons she'd collected, bounced against her small frame as she skipped ahead. "Sure thing, sweetheart. But remember, we need to get dinner started soon," Thomas replied, checking his watch. He'd promised mac and cheese tonight, Lily's favorite, as a reward for her good behavior all week. The park was quieter than usual for a Thursday afternoon. Most families were likely hurrying home to escape the unexpected chill that had settled over the city. Thomas pulled his jacket tighter and watched as Lily raced toward the empty playground, her brown ponytail swinging behind her. "Not too long on the swings, Lil. 10 minutes, okay?" he called out, settling on a bench where he could keep an eye on her. The past year had been tough after Lily's mom had left, but moments like these, watching his daughter's face light up with simple joy, made everything worthwhile. Thomas scrolled through work emails on his phone, half listening to Lily's delighted squeals as she pumped her legs on the swing. His boss had been understanding about his situation, allowing him to work flexible hours so he could handle school drop-offs and pickups. Still, there was always more work waiting, more deadlines looming. "Daddy!" Lily's voice suddenly cut through his thoughts. She had stopped swinging and was now standing still, pointing toward the far side of the park. "Daddy, come look!" Thomas pocketed his phone and walked over, wondering what had caught her attention. "What is it, sweetie?" Lily didn't answer right away. She just kept pointing toward a bench partially hidden by overgrown bushes near the park's edge. As they moved closer, Thomas saw what had captured his daughter's attention. A young woman sitting hunched over on the bench, a small stroller pulled close beside her. The woman's clothes looked worn, her hair tied back messily, and despite the chilly air, her jacket seemed too thin for proper warmth. "Daddy, why is she and her baby sleeping there?" Lily asked, her voice ringing with innocent curiosity. The question hung in the air between them. Thomas felt a knot form in his stomach as he realized what they were seeing. The woman wasn't sleeping. She was simply trying to stay warm, one hand protectively placed on the stroller beside her. As if sensing their gaze, she looked up briefly, her eyes meeting Thomas's for just a moment before she turned away, pulling a thin blanket tighter around herself and the stroller. "Daddy?" Lily prompted again when he didn't answer. "Is she having a picnic?" "But it's cold for picnics." Thomas gently took Lily's hand, suddenly unsure how to explain the concept of homelessness to a 6-year-old. How do you tell a child who feels safe in her bed every night that some people have nowhere to go? "I don't think they're having a picnic, Lily," he said softly. I think maybe they don't have a home to go to right now." Lily's forehead wrinkled in confusion. "But everyone has a home. You said so when we read the story about animals. People should have homes," Thomas corrected gently. "But sometimes things happen and people lose their homes for a while." Lily looked back at the woman who was now rummaging through a worn backpack. "Like when Kim's house had a fire and she stayed with her grandma." "Sort of like that, yes," Thomas said, relieved at his daughter's attempt to make sense of it. "But not everyone has a grandma's house to go to." He felt Lily's small hand squeeze his tighter as she processed this information. The temperature seemed to be dropping as evening approached, and Thomas noticed the woman pulling the blanket higher over the stroller. "Is she cold, Daddy?" Lily asked, her voice smaller now. "I think she might be," Thomas admitted, feeling a growing sense of discomfort. Should they approach? Offer help? Would that be intrusive or unwelcome? Before he could decide, Lily pulled free from his grasp and took 3 steps forward. "Hello," she called out, waving her hand slightly. Thomas quickly moved beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. The woman looked up again, startled. Now that they were closer, Thomas could see she was younger than he'd initially thought, probably in her early 20s. Her face showed signs of exhaustion, but her eyes were alert and wary. "I'm sorry," Thomas said quickly. "We didn't mean to disturb you." The woman nodded slightly but didn't speak. From the stroller came a soft cooing sound and Lily's eyes widened. "You have a baby?" she asked excitedly. "Can I see?" "I'm very careful with babies. Ms. Chen let me hold her baby when she visited our class." Thomas was about to pull Lily back when the woman's face softened just slightly. "His name is Lucas," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "He's 8 months old." Encouraged by the response, Lily beamed. "I'm Lily and I'm 6. This is my dad. His name is Thomas." Thomas felt caught in an odd social situation, part of him wanting to respect this woman's privacy, another part knowing he couldn't simply walk away now. "It's getting pretty cold out here," he found himself saying. "Is there somewhere you're planning to go for the night?" The woman's eyes hardened slightly, a flash of pride visible. "We're fine," she said, though her shivering told a different story. A soft cry came from the stroller, and the woman immediately turned her attention to it, leaning over to adjust the blanket. Thomas caught a glimpse of tiny fingers reaching up from the bundle. "The community center on Oak Street stays open until 8, Thomas offered hesitantly. "They have heat. And I think there's a shelter on Wilson Avenue." "They're full," the woman cut in, not looking up. "They're always full," Thomas nodded, unsure what to say next. Lily, however, had no such hesitation. "Our house isn't full," she stated matter-of-factly. "We have a guest room. Grandpa stays there at Christmas." Thomas felt a flush of embarrassment mixed with something else, a recognition of his daughter's untainted kindness, so simple and direct compared to his own cautious approach. "Lily, honey," he started, but wasn't sure how to continue. The woman saved him from having to respond. "That's very nice of you," she said to Lily, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "But we'll be okay." The baby let out another cry, louder this time. The woman reached into her backpack and pulled out a bottle, but Thomas could see it was empty. She sighed, a sound of quiet desperation that hit Thomas hard. Do you need anything? For tonight, I mean?" he asked, trying to find some middle ground between his daughter's open-hearted offer and his own adult uncertainties. The woman looked at him directly then, as if measuring his intentions. Whatever she saw seemed to reassure her slightly. "We're okay," she repeated, but with less conviction. The wind picked up suddenly, sending a swirl of leaves around them. Lily shivered and pressed closer to Thomas. "Daddy, I'm cold," she said, "and I think the baby is cold too." The simple observation struck Thomas with unexpected force. If his daughter was cold in her warm coat after just a few minutes, how would this woman and her baby make it through the night? "Listen," he said, making a quick decision. "There's a coffee shop just around the corner. Would you like to come get something warm to drink? They have high chairs and changing facilities if you need them for—" He gestured toward the stroller. "Lucas," the woman supplied, hesitating. The baby cried again, and that seemed to help her decide. "Just for a little while," she conceded quietly. As they walked slowly toward the park exit, the woman keeping a careful distance while pushing the stroller, Thomas felt Lily slip her small hand into his. "Why are you squeezing my hand so tight, Daddy?" she whispered. Thomas realized he'd been gripping her hand firmly, a physical manifestation of the emotional turmoil he felt, uncertainty, caution, and an awareness that his comfortable world had just collided with a much harsher reality. "Sorry, sweetheart," he said, loosening his grip. "I was just thinking." "About the lady and her baby?" Lily asked. "Yes," he admitted. "About them and about how lucky we are." Lily nodded seriously, processing this in her 6-year-old way. "Maybe we can help them find a home too, Daddy. Like when we helped find a home for the kitten in Mrs. Rivera's garden." Thomas glanced ahead at the young woman pushing the stroller, her shoulders hunched against the cold, and felt both the weight and the wisdom of his daughter's simple suggestion. Some problems couldn't be solved as easily as finding a home for a stray kitten, but that didn't mean they shouldn't try. "Maybe," he said softly. "Maybe we can." The coffee shop was warm and smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. Thomas held the door open as the young woman carefully maneuvered the stroller inside. Lily had already rushed to a corner booth, claiming it by placing her backpack on the seat. "This is our special spot," she announced proudly as they approached. "We can see the fish tank from here." Thomas noticed how the woman, who had finally introduced herself as Anna during their short walk, scanned the cafe nervously. Her eyes darted between exits and other customers as if expecting someone to tell her to leave. The baby in the stroller, Lucas, had quieted down but was making soft fussing noises. "Would you like some tea? Or coffee?" Thomas asked, trying to sound casual, though. He felt anything but. This whole situation was new territory for him. Anna hesitated. Just Just a hot water is fine, she said quietly. They have really good hot chocolate, Lily chimed in, with marshmallows that look like stars. A hint of a smile touched Anna's tired face. That sounds nice. 3 hot chocolates then, Thomas decided. And maybe some sandwiches? I don't know about you two, but I'm starving. While Thomas went to order, Lily chatted away to Anna, seemingly unaware of the woman's initial discomfort. By the time he returned with a tray of drinks and food, Anna was showing Lily how Lucas could grip her finger with his whole hand. He's strong, Lily said, impressed, and his eyes are so big and brown. Thomas set down the tray, noticing how Anna's gaze lingered on the food. When was the last time she'd eaten a proper meal? He pushed a sandwich plate toward her. Turkey and cheese, he said casually. Unless you're vegetarian? I can get something else. No, this is perfect, Anna said. Thank you. As they ate, Thomas learned bits and pieces of Anna's story. She spoke in careful, measured sentences at first, as if testing how much to share. She had lost her job at a clothing store when it closed down 4 months ago. Her boyfriend had left when she told him she was pregnant. Without family support and with rising rent, she'd fallen behind on payments. The eviction notice had come 3 weeks ago. I've been trying to find a new job, she explained, her voice growing stronger as she sensed no judgment from Thomas. But it's hard with Lucas. Daycare costs more than I can afford, and shelters. She paused, absently stroking Lucas's cheek as he dozed in the stroller beside her. The family shelters have waiting lists. The others don't feel safe for a baby. Thomas nodded, understanding more than he wanted to about how quickly life could unravel. After his wife had left, he'd struggled for months to find his footing as a single parent. But he'd had savings, a steady job, supportive friends. What would have happened if those safety nets hadn't existed? Where have you been staying? He asked carefully. Anna looked down at her half-eaten sandwich. Different places. There's a laundromat that stays open all night. The owner lets me sit there sometimes. The park when it's not raining. A church opened their basement last week during the cold spell. Lily, who had been quietly eating her cookie and seemingly focused on making shapes with her napkin, suddenly looked up. But where do you brush your teeth? Daddy says we have to brush our teeth every night and every morning. The simple question hung in the air. Anna looked at Lily, then at Thomas, a flush of embarrassment crossing her face. There's a public restroom in the library, she finally answered. They have soap there. Thomas felt a tightness in his chest. The practical reality of Anna's situation was beginning to sink in. The daily struggles he took for granted were major hurdles for her. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, asking if Lily was still coming for her playdate with Kim tomorrow afternoon. The message sparked an idea. Mrs. Chen was a retired social worker. She might know about resources that could help Anna. I hope this isn't overstepping, Thomas said carefully. But I have a friend who used to work with the city's family services. She might know some options that could help. Places with shorter waiting lists or emergency assistance. Anna tensed slightly. I don't want to get involved with the system, she said, lowering her voice. I can't risk losing Lucas. That wouldn't happen, Thomas assured her, though in truth he wasn't completely certain. This would just be information about housing and job assistance. Anna didn't look convinced. Lucas began to stir in his stroller, making little pre-crying noises that Thomas recognized from Lily's baby days. Anna immediately reached for him, her maternal instincts kicking in despite her exhaustion. He probably needs changing, she murmured, looking around uncertainly. Bathroom's in the back, Thomas said, pointing. There's a changing table in there. As Anna wheeled the stroller toward the restroom, Thomas took the moment to quickly text Mrs. Chen, giving her a brief outline of the situation. Her response came almost immediately. Bring them to my place tomorrow. I still have contacts. We can help, Lily tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, is Anna going to sleep on the park bench again tonight? The question cut straight to the heart of the matter. Thomas looked at his daughter's concerned face and knew he couldn't just walk away from this situation. I don't know, sweetie, he answered honestly. But it's supposed to rain tonight, Ms. Rivera said so in class today. She said we should all bring raincoats tomorrow. Thomas hadn't checked the weather, but Lily was right. Clouds had been gathering all afternoon. The thought of Anna and Lucas trying to find shelter from rain made his decision clearer. When Anna returned with Lucas, who was now babbling happily in her arms, Thomas took a deep breath. "There's a small guest room in our apartment," he said carefully. "It's nothing fancy, just a bed and a dresser. But you and Lucas are welcome to stay there. Just until you find something more permanent." The offer hung between them. Anna stared at him, clearly struggling with pride, caution, and desperate need. "Why would you do that?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know me." It was a fair question. Thomas wasn't typically the sort to invite strangers into his home. He was cautious by nature, even more so since becoming solely responsible for Lily's well-being. "Because no one should have to sleep outside in the rain," Lily answered before Thomas could, her child's logic cutting through the adult complications, especially not babies. Anna looked from Lily to Thomas, then down at Lucas, who was contentedly chewing on his fist. A tear slipped down her cheek, quickly wiped away. "Just for tonight," she conceded. "And I can help clean or cook or something to pay you back." "We're having mac and cheese," Lily informed her seriously. "It's the kind with the shapes that look like little wheels." "Do you like mac and cheese?" The tension broke as Anna let out a small laugh. "Yes," she said, bouncing Lucas gently in her arms. "I like mac and cheese." As they gathered their things to leave the coffee shop, Thomas felt both uncertainty and a strange sense of rightness about his decision. The practical part of his brain listed all the reasons this was potentially risky or complicated. But watching Lily show Anna her collection of buttons on her backpack, seeing the gentle way Anna handled Lucas despite her obvious exhaustion, he knew he couldn't have made any other choice outside. The wind had picked up, carrying the distinct smell of approaching rain. Anna had insisted on retrieving her belongings from where she'd hidden them behind some bushes near the park bench. A duffel bag containing all that remained of her previous life. Thomas carried it now, struck by how light it was, how little she had. "Our building is just 2 blocks that way," he said, pointing. "Second floor, but there's an elevator if you need it for the stroller." "I've been carrying him up and down stairs for months," Anna replied with a hint of pride. "We manage." Thomas nodded, respecting her independence while still holding the door as they entered the apartment building. In the elevator, Lily pressed the button for the second floor, then launched into an explanation of which neighbors lived on which floor and what kind of pets they had. "Mrs. Chen has a cat named Whiskers, but he hides under the couch when I come over. And Mr. Paul on the first floor has 2 fish tanks. One has regular fish and one has those glowing ones that look like they're from space." Anna listened, nodding at appropriate moments, but Thomas could see the tension in her shoulders, the wariness that hadn't fully left her eyes. Trust would take time, he realized. And why shouldn't it? Her recent experiences had likely taught her that the world wasn't kind to those in need. As Thomas unlocked the door to their apartment, he felt a moment of self-consciousness. The place wasn't messy exactly, but there were signs of their rushed morning. A cereal bowl in the sink, Lily's pajamas thrown over a chair, a half-finished cup of coffee on the counter. Not the impression he would have chosen to make. Had he planned this? "It's not much," he said apologetically as they entered. "But it's home." Anna stepped inside cautiously, taking in the small living room with its comfortable but worn couch, the bookshelf overflowing with children's books and photo albums, the kitchen visible through an open archway. "It's nice," she said softly, and he could tell she meant it. "It feels like a home." Lucas, perhaps sensing the warmth and safety of being indoors, let out a happy gurgle and kicked his feet energetically. "The guest room is this way," Thomas said, leading them down a short hallway. "Bathroom's right across from it. There's clean towels in the cabinet under the sink." The guest room was small but neat. Thomas's father stayed there during his visits, so there was a comfortable single bed, a small dresser, and a nightstand with a reading lamp. Thomas had cleared out most of his home office when Lily was born, keeping just a small desk in the corner of his bedroom, so the room felt properly like a guest space rather than a converted office. "Will this be okay?" he asked. Anna stood in the doorway, Lucas balanced on her hip, her free hand gripping the strap of her duffel bag that Thomas had set on the floor. For a moment she didn't speak, and Thomas worried he'd somehow offended her. Then he saw the tears welling in her eyes. "This is perfect," she said, her voice catching. "Thank you." Outside, rain began to fall, pattering against the window. Anna crossed to look out at it, then back at Thomas with a look of profound relief that made words unnecessary. Instead of sleeping under that downpour, she and Lucas would be warm and dry tonight. "I'll let you get settled," Thomas said, Bathroom's all yours if you want to clean up. I promised Lily mac and cheese for dinner, so I should get started on that. As he turned to leave, Anna spoke again. Thomas? He paused in the doorway. Why are you doing this, really? Thomas thought about it for a moment. Because it's what I'd hoped someone would do for Lily and me if we ever needed it. He closed the door gently, giving Anna privacy to settle in. In the kitchen, Lily was already dragging her step stool to the counter, eager to help with dinner. Is Anna going to live with us now, Daddy? She asked, climbing up to reach the pasta box he handed her. Just for a little while, he answered carefully, until she can find a place of her own. Lily nodded, accepting this with a child's adaptability. Lucas is cute. He smiles with his whole face, just like Kim's baby brother. As Thomas filled a pot with water, he heard the shower start running down the hall. Something settled in his chest. A certainty that despite the complications this situation might bring, he'd made the right choice. Tomorrow they would talk to Mrs. Chen, explore options, make plans. But tonight, at least, Anna and Lucas were safe. The rain fell harder outside, drumming against the windows, but inside the apartment, the smell of cooking pasta and the sound of Lily's cheerful chatter created a bubble of warmth that felt like enough for now. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as Thomas prepared breakfast. He'd woken up earlier than usual, his mind busy with thoughts about their unexpected house guests. The rain had continued through the night, making him all the more certain he'd made the right decision in offering shelter. Lily was still asleep, exhausted from the excitement of the previous evening. Dinner had been surprisingly comfortable. Anna had emerged from the guest room looking refreshed after her shower, Lucas clean and content in her arms. They'd eaten mac and cheese while Lily chatted away, seemingly unfazed by the strangers at their table. Anna had been quiet but attentive, smiling at Lily's stories about school and answering her endless questions about Lucas with patient detail. Now, as Thomas cracked eggs into a bowl, he heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Anna appeared in the kitchen doorway, Lucas balanced on her hip. Her hair was neatly combed, her clothes, though clearly worn, were clean. She looked better rested than she had yesterday, though shadows still lingered under her eyes. Good morning, Thomas said, keeping his voice casual. Sleep okay? Anna nodded. Better than I have in weeks, she admitted. Thank you. Lucas babbled happily, reaching out toward the colorful refrigerator magnets. He wore a clean onesie that Thomas recognized as one of the few baby items he'd kept from Lily's infancy. Anna must have found the box in the guest room closet where he'd stored them, unable to part with certain mementos. I hope you don't mind, Anna said, following his gaze. His clothes were all dirty and I found the box labeled baby clothes. Not at all, Thomas assured her. They've just been sitting there. I'm glad they're getting some use. He gestured toward the kitchen table. Coffee? And I'm making scrambled eggs and toast if you'd like some. Anna hesitated only briefly before taking a seat. That sounds wonderful. Can I help with anything? Just relax, Thomas said, pouring her a cup of coffee. I'm used to morning duty. Lily sleeps in on weekends. As if summoned by her name, Lily appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep, her favorite stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. Her face brightened when she saw Anna and Lucas. You're still here, she exclaimed happily, rushing over to peer at the baby. Hi, Lucas. Did you sleep good? Anna smiled, the most genuine expression Thomas had seen from her. We slept very well, thank you. Daddy's making eggs, right? Lily asked, climbing onto a chair. He makes them the best way, all fluffy and not too wet. High praise from a food critic, Thomas laughed, setting a plate in front of Anna. There's a high chair in the hall closet. If you want to use it for Lucas, it was Lily's. While they ate, Thomas broached the subject of what came next. I texted my neighbor last night, Mrs. Chen, the one I mentioned. She used to work for family services. She said she'd be happy to talk with you today about some options. Anna tensed slightly, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. What kind of options? Housing assistance, job programs, childcare options, Thomas listed. No pressure, just information. She still has contacts in the system that might be able to fast-track some applications. Anna seemed to consider this, looking down at Lucas, who was happily gumming a small piece of toast in the high chair. I've tried some programs before, she said cautiously. The waiting lists were months long. Mrs. Chen is like a magic person, Lily announced with confidence. When our sink was broken and making that funny noise, the regular man couldn't come for 2 weeks. But Mrs. Chen called someone and they came the next day. Thomas smiled at his daughter's simple faith in their neighbor's abilities. She does seem to know everyone in the city. But if you're not comfortable, that's completely fine too. Anna took a deep breath. No, I'll talk to her. I can't. She glanced at Lucas, lowering her voice slightly. I can't keep doing what we've been doing. It's not fair to him. After breakfast, Thomas suggested they all walk together to the nearby playground before their appointment with Mrs. Chen. The rain had cleared, leaving behind a freshly washed feeling in the air. Lily was thrilled at the prospect, especially when Thomas mentioned they could stop at the bakery on the corner for pastries. As they walked, Thomas noticed how Anna kept Lucas's stroller close, her eyes occasionally darting to passing strangers with a wariness born of hard experience. But there were moments when she relaxed, laughing at Lily's hopscotch attempts on the sidewalk cracks, pointing out a cardinal perched on a fence post to Lucas. At the playground, Lily immediately headed for the swings, her weekend ritual. "Push me, Daddy," she called. Thomas looked at Anna, who had found a bench in the sun. "Do you mind if I—" "Go ahead," she said with a small smile. "We're fine right here." As Thomas pushed Lily on the swing, he kept glancing over at Anna. She had taken Lucas out of the stroller and was holding him on her lap, letting him feel the sun on his face. The baby giggled, a sound that carried across the playground and made Thomas smile involuntarily. After Lily had exhausted her interest in the swings and moved on to the slide, Thomas sat down beside Anna on the bench. Lucas was now crawling on a blanket Anna had spread on the grass in front of them, exploring with the intense focus only babies can manage. "He's very active," Thomas observed. Anna nodded proudly. "The doctor at the free clinic said he's developing right on schedule, maybe even a little ahead. I've been worried about that, if not having a stable home would affect him." "Kids are surprisingly resilient," Thomas said, thinking of how well Lily had adjusted after her mother left. "But it's good that you've been able to keep up with his checkups." "I try," Anna said quietly. "The clinic downtown lets me bring him in without insurance. They're nice there." She paused, watching Lucas examine a dandelion with great concentration. "It's been the hardest part, worrying about him getting sick when we don't have a place to go." Thomas nodded, understanding the fear all too well. When Lily had developed a high fever last winter, it had been terrifying enough with access to health care and a warm apartment. He couldn't imagine facing something like that while homeless. "Lucas seems healthy and happy," he offered. "You're doing a good job with him." Anna's eyes grew bright with unshed tears. "Thank you for saying that," she whispered. "Sometimes I wonder if someone else could give him a better life." "Hey," Thomas said gently, surprising himself by placing his hand over hers on the bench between them. "The fact that you worry about that shows what a good mom you are. You're putting him first, even in impossible circumstances." Anna looked down at their hands, then back up at Thomas with a mix of gratitude and something else he couldn't quite name. Before she could respond, Lily came running over, proudly holding a fistful of slightly crushed daisies. "I picked these for Lucas," she announced. "Babies like flowers, right?" Anna smiled, the emotional moment passing. "I think he'll love them," she said, taking the flowers and holding them where Lucas could see. The baby reached for them with chubby hands, his face lighting up at the bright colors. "See? He likes them," Lily said triumphantly. "Can I show him how to make a daisy chain? My friend Zoe taught me how." "Sure," Anna said, moving to sit on the blanket beside Lucas. Lily immediately plopped down next to them, carefully demonstrating how to split the stems with her thumbnail. Thomas watched the scene, struck by how natural it felt. Just yesterday, Anna and Lucas had been strangers. Today they were making daisy chains in the park with his daughter, as if they'd known each other for ages. There was something about children, he thought, that cut through the awkwardness and caution adults carried with them. After the playground, they stopped at the bakery as promised. The owner, Mr. Patel, greeted Thomas by name and slipped an extra cookie into Lily's bag for being such a good helper. When Thomas introduced Anna and Lucas, Mr. Patel immediately produced a small piece of soft bread for the baby. "Perfect for little gums," he said with a wink. "My grandson is the same age." As they walked back toward the apartment building for their meeting with Mrs. Chen, Thomas noticed Anna seemed more relaxed. She walked closer to him now, occasionally commenting on neighborhood features. The community garden on the corner, the little free library beside the bus stop. "Your neighborhood is nice," she observed. Everyone seems to know each other. It's not always perfect, Thomas admitted, but there is a good sense of community here. People look out for each other. That's rare, Anna said softly, almost to herself. Mrs. Chen was waiting for them in the lobby, her silver hair neatly pinned back, a folder of papers tucked under one arm. At 72, she moved with the energy of someone 20 years younger, immediately crossing to greet them. "Thomas, Lily," she exclaimed, giving Lily a quick hug. Then she turned to Anna, her expression warm but assessing. "And you must be Anna and little Lucas. I'm Lin Chen." Anna shifted nervously but extended her hand. "Thank you for meeting with us," she said formally. "Thomas says you might know about some resources. Let's talk upstairs," Mrs. Chen suggested. "My apartment is right across from Thomas's. I made tea and there are cookies." For Miss Lily, in Mrs. Chen's apartment, a cozy space filled with plants and photographs. They settled around a low coffee table. Lily immediately began playing with a basket of wooden puzzles that Mrs. Chen kept specifically for young visitors, while Lucas contentedly explored a set of stacking cups on the carpet. Mrs. Chen wasted no time. "Thomas gave me the basics of your situation," she said to Anna, "but I'd like to hear it from you, if that's all right." Thomas expected Anna to give the abbreviated version she'd shared with him, but something about Mrs. Chen's gentle authority seemed to open a floodgate. Anna spoke for nearly 20 minutes, detailing her journey from a small town 3 hours away, her relationship with Lucas's father that had gradually turned controlling, then frightening. She described losing her apartment, the struggle to find work while caring for an infant, the nights spent in emergency rooms just to stay warm, and the constant fear of having Lucas taken from her. Mrs. Chen listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. When Anna finished, she reached across the table and squeezed the younger woman's hand. "You've been carrying too much alone," she said simply. "Let's lighten that load." What followed was a practical discussion of immediate options. Mrs. Chen had already made calls that morning. Thomas realized she must have been working on this since his text the night before. There was a transitional housing program with an opening, funded by a local church coalition. It offered private rooms for families, shared kitchen facilities, and crucially, on-site childcare during working hours. "The waiting list is usually 3 months, Mrs. Chen explained, but I spoke with the director. She's holding a spot that became available yesterday. You could move in tomorrow if you want to." Anna looked stunned. "Just like that?" Mrs. Chen smiled. "Sometimes the system works, especially when people push it to. The housing is temporary, 6 months maximum, but it gives you time to save money and find something permanent." "What about work?" Anna asked, her practical side emerging through the shock. "I've been applying everywhere, but without a permanent address." "There's a job training program connected to the housing," Mrs. Chen explained, pulling a brochure from her folder. "And a retail position opening next week at a store owned by another former client of mine. The pay isn't spectacular, but they're flexible with parents and the employee discount is substantial." Thomas watched as Anna's expression shifted from disbelief to cautious hope. For the first time since they'd met, he saw her shoulders truly relax, as if a weight was being lifted. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank me by using these opportunities," Mrs. Chen replied matter-of-factly, "and someday when you're back on your feet, help someone else who needs it." The conversation continued, covering details about paperwork, transportation to the housing facility, and other practical matters. Thomas quietly made tea in Mrs. Chen's kitchen, listening as the two women talked. Lucas had fallen asleep on the playmat, and Lily was now drawing pictures at a small desk in the corner. "Will Anna and Lucas be far away?" Lily asked when Thomas brought her a cup of juice. "Not too far," he answered honestly. "A few bus stops." Lily considered this, then bent to her drawing with renewed focus. "I'm making them a welcome picture for their new home," she explained seriously. Later, as they walked back to Thomas's apartment, Anna was quiet but no longer tense. Lucas slept peacefully in his stroller, and Lily skipped ahead, chattering about the cookies Mrs. Chen had given her. "Are you okay with all this?" Thomas asked Anna when they reached his door. "It's a lot to process in one day." Anna stopped, turning to look at him directly. "Yesterday morning I woke up on a park bench wondering how I would feed Lucas and keep him warm. Tonight I'm going to sleep in a real bed. knowing that tomorrow we'll have a safe place to live and I might even have a job soon. Her voice caught. It doesn't feel real. It's real, Thomas assured her. You deserve this chance, Anna, both of you do. Anna looked down at Lucas, then back at Thomas, her eyes clear and direct for the first time since they'd met. Your daughter asked why we were sleeping in the park. You could have just pulled her away, explained it in the car, and gone on with your day. Most people would have. I'm not most people, Thomas said with a small smile. And Lily wouldn't have let me hear the end of it. Still, Anna insisted. You saw us as people, not just as a problem. You didn't look away. She hesitated, then added softly, no one's really seen us for a long time. Something shifted in the air between them, a recognition of shared humanity that went beyond the helper and the helped. Thomas realized that in offering Anna and Lucas shelter, he'd received something valuable in return, a reminder of the community he'd been too busy to fully appreciate, and the example of resilience he hoped to instill in his daughter. Well, he said, finally unlocking his door, we see you now, and we're glad we do. The morning sun cast long shadows across the playground as Thomas watched Lily push Lucas gently on the baby swing. 2 weeks had passed since Anna and Lucas had moved into the transitional housing program, and this Saturday morning visit had already become something of a ritual. Thomas brought coffee for himself and Anna. Lily packed her special sidewalk chalk to share, and they spent a few hours together before Anna had to leave for her afternoon job training session. Higher, Daddy, Lily called, struggling to push the baby swing properly. Lucas likes it higher. Thomas moved to help, carefully increasing the swing's arc while making sure it stayed gentle enough for an 8-month-old. Lucas giggled with delight, his pudgy legs kicking enthusiastically. Anna watched from a nearby bench, cradling her coffee cup between her hands. There was a new steadiness to her now, subtle but noticeable. Her clothes were still worn but clean, her hair pulled back neatly, and most importantly, the constant tension that had marked her posture when they first met had eased considerably. How's the new job going? Thomas asked, joining her on the bench while Lily continued entertaining Lucas. Good, Anna replied with a small smile. Better than I expected, actually. My supervisor is understanding about my schedule with Lucas, and the other women in the training program have been really supportive. That's great, Thomas said, genuinely pleased. The retail position Mrs. Chen had mentioned had come through, a job at a local department store that worked around Anna's housing program schedule. It's still hard, Anna admitted, watching Lucas laugh as Lily made funny faces at him. The housing program has rules, curfews, meetings we have to attend, chores. Sometimes it feels like being back in high school. She shrugged. But Lucas has his own crib now and there's always food in the kitchen. That's worth any amount of rules? Thomas nodded, understanding. Over the past 2 weeks, he'd learned more about Anna's journey, the small rural town she'd left behind, the relationship that had gradually turned controlling and then frightening, the desperate choice to leave with almost nothing when Lucas was just 3 months old. Her resilience amazed him. You know, Anna said hesitantly, I've been thinking about what Mrs. Chen said, about helping someone else someday when I'm back on my feet. She turned the coffee cup in her hands. I don't want to wait until then. There's a young girl who just arrived at the housing program yesterday with her baby. She's only 19 and she looks so scared. I've been showing her around, telling her about the resources Mrs. Chen connected me with. Thomas smiled. That's exactly what builds community, he said. People helping each other even when they don't have much themselves. Anna nodded thoughtfully. Before I met you and Lily, I was starting to believe nobody saw people like us, or if they did, they just looked away. It made me feel invisible. Daddy, Lily's voice interrupted their conversation. Lucas wants to try the slide. Can you help? Thomas stood. Duty calls, he said with a grin. As he walked toward the playground equipment, he heard Anna follow behind him. The morning passed pleasantly, with Lucas trying various playground activities with the enthusiastic assistance of Lily, who had appointed herself his personal entertainment committee. By the time they packed up to leave, Lucas was drowsy. Yes, heavy with the promise of a nap. I should get him back for lunch, Anna said, settling him in the stroller. And I have that job skills workshop at 2. We'll walk you to the bus stop, Thomas offered. Lily immediately took position beside the stroller, proudly helping to push it along the sidewalk. As they waited for the bus, Thomas noticed Anna seemed preoccupied, worrying at her bottom lip with her teeth. a habit he'd come to recognize as a sign she was working through something difficult. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. Anna hesitated, then spoke quickly as if afraid she'd lose her courage. "There's a parent meeting at the housing program tonight. They're discussing some problems with the childcare schedule. I was wondering if you're not busy, you might come and help us figure out how to talk to the administrators. You're good with words and systems and—" She trailed off, looking embarrassed. Thomas was surprised but touched by her trust. "Of course," he said without hesitation. "What time?" 7, Anna replied, relief evident in her voice. "It's just that some of the parents are working evening shifts, but the childcare center closes at 6. And the administration keeps saying there's no funding for extended hours. But without childcare, people can't take those jobs." "And I get it," Thomas said, stopping her rush of explanation. "It's a catch-22. I'll be there." The bus arrived, and Anna quickly maneuvered the stroller on board with the practiced efficiency of someone who relied on public transportation. "Thank you," she called as the doors closed. Lily waved enthusiastically until the bus disappeared around the corner. Walking home, Lily skipped beside Thomas, chattering about Lucas's adventures on the playground. "He's really brave for a baby," she declared. "He wasn't even scared of the big slide when I held him." "You're a good friend to him," Thomas said, smiling at his daughter's pride. "Are Anna and Lucas going to live in their new place forever?" Lily asked suddenly. Thomas considered how to explain the concept of transitional housing to a 6-year-old. "Not forever," he answered honestly. "The place where they're staying now is just temporary, like a stepping stone to help them find a permanent home." Lily processed this information with a furrowed brow. "But where will they go next?" "I don't know exactly," Thomas admitted. "But Anna is working hard to save money for an apartment of their own." Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. Then, with the direct logic of childhood, she asked, "Could they live with us if they don't find an apartment?" The question caught Thomas off guard. Before he could formulate a response, Lily continued, "I like having Lucas around, and Anna makes really good pancakes. Plus, they don't take up much space." Thomas chuckled, ruffling Lily's hair. "Let's focus on helping them find their own place, sweetheart. That's what Anna wants, a home for her and Lucas that belongs to them." That evening, after arranging for Mrs. Chen to watch Lily, Thomas took the bus to the address Anna had given him. The transitional housing facility was a converted 3-story building that had once been a small hotel. It was clean and well-maintained, if somewhat institutional in appearance. Inside, he found a common room where about 15 people, mostly women with a few men scattered throughout, had gathered. Anna spotted him immediately and waved him over to an empty chair beside her. Lucas sat on her lap, contentedly chewing on a rubber toy. "Thank you for coming," she whispered as he sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "I said I would," Thomas replied simply. The meeting was already underway, led by a harried-looking woman who introduced herself as the program coordinator. The issue, as Anna had explained, centered on childcare hours. The on-site facility closed at 6 p.m., but many of the better-paying job opportunities required evening shifts. "We understand your frustration," the coordinator was saying, "but our funding simply doesn't allow for extended childcare hours. The grant that pays for our childcare workers specifically covers daytime operations." Several parents tried to speak at once, their voices overlapping with increasing frustration. The coordinator raised her hands, trying to maintain order. Thomas leaned toward Anna. "Has anyone looked into alternative solutions? Volunteer programs, cooperative childcare arrangements among the residents?" Anna shook her head. "Most of us are strangers to each other. Trust is complicated." Thomas nodded, understanding. Parents who had experienced housing insecurity would naturally be protective of their children, cautious about who cared for them. When there was a pause in the discussion, Thomas raised his hand. The coordinator nodded toward him, looking relieved at the presence of a calm voice. "I'm Thomas Jenkins, a friend of Anna's." He introduced himself. "I'm wondering if there might be creative solutions we haven't explored. For example, are there any connections with local colleges that might have early childhood education students who need practicum hours, or retired teachers in the community who might volunteer their time?" The coordinator looked thoughtful. "We haven't pursued those avenues specifically," she admitted. "Our focus has been on grant funding." "I work in marketing," Thomas continued. And I've seen how community partnerships can sometimes solve problems that money alone can't. Would it be helpful if I reached out to some contacts? I know several people at the community college, and my neighbor is a retired social worker with extensive connections. A murmur of interest ran through the room. The young woman sitting on Anna's other side, possibly the 19-year-old Anna had mentioned, spoke up hesitantly. My aunt was a preschool teacher, she said. She's retired now, but she's always saying how much she misses working with kids. Maybe there are other people like her. The conversation began to shift, moving from frustration to brainstorming. Someone suggested a rotating volunteer system where parents could earn credits by helping during their available hours. Another person mentioned a church group that had recently offered assistance to the program. By the end of the meeting, a committee had formed to explore these options, with Thomas agreeing to make initial contacts with the community college and local volunteer organizations. Anna had volunteered to coordinate parent schedules, identifying when the greatest childcare needs occurred. As people filtered out of the room, the program coordinator approached Thomas. "Thank you for your input," she said, extending her hand. "Sometimes we get so focused on the funding aspects that we miss community-based solutions." "Happy to help," Thomas replied. "These parents are working incredibly hard to build stable lives for their families. Something as basic as childcare shouldn't be the obstacle that holds them back." Anna joined them, Lucas now asleep against her shoulder. "Did you mean what you said about reaching out to the community college?" she asked Thomas. "Absolutely," he assured her. "I already have some ideas about who to contact." The coordinator excused herself to lock up the meeting room, leaving Thomas and Anna standing in the hallway. "You were amazing in there," Anna said quietly. "Everyone was just complaining, including me, but you immediately started looking for actual solutions." Thomas shrugged. "Sometimes it helps to have an outside perspective. And honestly, I've been on the other side of childcare problems as a single parent. When Lily first started school, I nearly lost a promotion because I couldn't find after-school care that matched my work schedule." Anna nodded, shifting Lucas gently to her other shoulder. "How did you solve it?" "A neighbor, actually Mrs. Chen, suggested a cooperative arrangement with other parents from Lily's class. We took turns covering after-school hours." He smiled at the memory. It turned out to be better than the formal childcare program. "The kids loved the variety of homes and activities, and I made some good friends in the process." They walked toward the building's entrance together. Outside, the evening had cooled, streetlights casting pools of yellow light along the sidewalk. "Can I walk you to your bus stop?" Anna offered. "Lucas is out cold. He won't wake up until morning." "Sure," Thomas agreed, surprised but pleased by the offer. As they walked, Anna spoke about her experiences in the housing program, the challenges but also the small victories. She'd made friends with 2 other single mothers. The job training was building her confidence. Lucas was thriving in the child care center, reaching new developmental milestones weekly. "It's not perfect," she concluded, "but it's a real chance. I feel like I can finally breathe and think beyond just surviving day to day." At the bus stop, Thomas turned to her. "I'm glad, Anna. You deserve this chance, both of you do." In the streetlight's glow, he could see her eyes were bright with emotion. "None of this would have happened without you and Lily," she said softly. "You know that, right? If you hadn't stopped that day in the park, someone else would have helped eventually," Thomas said, though he wasn't entirely convinced of that. Anna shook her head firmly. "You don't understand. I'd been sitting on that bench for 3 days. Hundreds of people walked by. Most didn't even look at me. The few who did either pretended they hadn't seen me or occasionally dropped some change without making eye contact." She adjusted Lucas on her shoulder. "You and Lily were the first people who saw us as people, not just as a problem." Before Thomas could respond, the bus appeared around the corner. As it pulled up to the stop, Anna impulsively reached out and squeezed his hand. "Thank you," she said simply, then boarded the bus with a small wave. As the bus pulled away, Thomas stood for a moment, thinking about what Anna had said. How many times had he himself walked past someone in need, too busy or uncomfortable to stop? It had taken his 6-year-old daughter's straightforward compassion to break through that barrier. The next morning, Thomas called Mrs. Chen to discuss the childcare situation at the housing program. Within hours, she had arranged a meeting with a former colleague who ran the early childhood education department at the community college. By that afternoon, They had the outlines of a plan, a practicum program that would allow students to earn credit hours by providing evening childcare at the housing facility, supervised by a retired teacher who would receive a small stipend from the college's community outreach fund. "You're quite good at this," Mrs. Chen observed as they walked back from the meeting. "Have you ever considered community organizing?" Thomas laughed. "I'm just connecting dots, really. That's what organizing is," Mrs. Chen replied, "seeing the resources and needs that exist and bringing them together." Over the next week, Thomas found himself increasingly involved in the project. He created a simple database to track volunteer availability and childcare needs. He designed flyers to recruit retired teachers and childcare workers from the community. When the program coordinator mentioned challenges with transportation for evening workers, Thomas reached out to his office about their corporate social responsibility program, securing a small grant to provide bus passes. Lily, meanwhile, had taken it upon herself to create welcome packages for each new child who entered the housing program. Each Friday after school, she carefully decorated paper bags and filled them with small toys, art supplies, and handwritten notes. Thomas would drop these off during his now regular visits to the facility. 2 weeks after the initial meeting, the evening childcare program launched with a small celebration. 6 early childhood education students had signed up for the practicum, along with 3 retired teachers and 4 community volunteers. The program would provide childcare until 10 p.m. on weeknights and limited hours on weekends, opening up significantly more employment opportunities for the parents. At the launch event, Thomas stood to the side, watching as families gathered in the common room. Lily was in her element, showing younger children how to make paper airplanes while infants and toddlers played in a designated area with new toys donated by a local business. "You did this," Anna said, appearing beside him with Lucas on her hip. The baby immediately reached for Thomas, a recent development that never failed to warm his heart. "It was a group effort," Thomas demurred, taking Lucas from her. "Everyone pitched in." Anna gave him a knowing look. "Yes, but it wouldn't have happened without you starting the ball rolling." She gestured around the room. "Look at what's happening here. 2 weeks ago, most of these parents were strangers to each other, all struggling with the same problems in isolation. Now there's a real community forming." Thomas had noticed the change too. Parents who had previously hurried through the common areas with downcast eyes now stopped to chat. Older children played together while their parents exchanged tips on job searches or affordable shopping options. What had been merely a shelter was beginning to feel like a neighborhood. The young woman I mentioned, Zoe, the 19-year-old, Anna continued. "She got a job at the same store where I work. Our shifts overlap, so we're going to share transportation costs." As they talked, the program coordinator approached with a middle-aged man Thomas didn't recognize. "Thomas, this is Robert Wilson from the City Council," she introduced them. "He's heard about our evening childcare initiative and wanted to see it in action." Thomas shook the man's hand, surprised by the interest from a city official. "This is an innovative model," Robert said, looking around the room. "The partnership with the college, the community volunteers, the parent involvement. It's addressing a gap in services we've been struggling with citywide." "It's still very new," Thomas cautioned. "We're working out the kinks as we go." "That's precisely what makes it valuable," Robert replied. "You're building the plane while flying it, so to speak." We have 5 other transitional housing facilities in the city, all facing similar childcare challenges. I'd like to discuss possibly replicating this model. The conversation continued, with Robert asking detailed questions about logistics, costs, and community engagement strategies. By the end, he had invited Thomas to present the program at the next city council meeting, with the possibility of securing funding to expand it to other facilities. After Robert left, Anna gave Thomas a gentle nudge. "Look at you, community organizer and policy advisor." Thomas laughed, bouncing Lucas gently in his arms. "Hardly. I'm just a guy who helped connect some dots." "Sometimes that's all it takes," Anna said quietly. "One person connecting dots, another person volunteering time, someone else donating resources. Before you know it, you've created something that changes lives." Lucas began to fuss, reaching back toward his mother. As Anna took him, their hands brushed, lingering for just a moment. Thomas felt a now familiar warmth spread through his chest. Not just the satisfaction of helping others, but something more personal, connected specifically to Anna and Lucas. We're having a little potluck dinner in our unit tomorrow night, Anna said, suddenly seeming slightly nervous. Just me and a few other parents. Nothing fancy, but if you and Lily would like to come, we'd love to, Thomas replied immediately, earning a smile that made the evening childcare program seem like a small accomplishment by comparison. The small apartment was filled with the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings. Sunlight streamed through windows that were no longer covered by the temporary paper blinds but adorned with actual curtains in blue, ones that Anna had carefully selected from a thrift store and washed 3 times until they were perfect. A second-hand couch with a bright yellow throw blanket dominated the modest living room, while a handmade bookshelf, Thomas's weekend project, housed a growing collection of children's books and a few treasured novels. Lucas, no. Anna laughed, scooping up the now 11-month-old as he attempted to crawl directly through a wet patch of paint. You're going to be a walking blue paintbrush if you keep this up. Thomas looked up from where he was carefully edging around the doorframe. I swear he's magnetically drawn to the wet paint. This is the 3rd time he's made a break for it. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, 3 months after Anna and Lucas had moved into their new apartment. The subsidized 1-bedroom wasn't large, but after transitional housing, it felt like a palace to Anna. She had signed the lease 2 weeks ago, after saving diligently from her now full-time position at the department store, where she'd been promoted to a customer service role with better hours and benefits. Daddy, is this straight? Lily called from across the room, where she was carefully arranging a row of family photos on a shelf. At 7, her birthday had passed the previous month, she took her decorating responsibilities with utmost seriousness. Looks perfect to me, Thomas replied, stepping back to assess his painting handiwork. Anna set Lucas down in the small playpen they'd set up in the corner, safely away from the painting project. He immediately began stacking and knocking over the colorful blocks, a game that never seemed to lose its appeal. She stepped back to stand beside Thomas, looking around the apartment with a sense of wonder that hadn't diminished since move-in day. I still can't believe it's real, she said softly. Thomas smiled, understanding. You earned this, Anna, every square inch of it. She shook her head, not without help. Her eyes met his, holding a warmth that had grown steadily over the months. I know I say it all the time, but thank you. Not just for the painting and the furniture building, but for everything. Before Thomas could respond, there was a knock at the door. Anna wiped her hands on her paint-splattered jeans and went to answer it. Mrs. Chen stood in the hallway, holding a large ceramic dish and wearing her characteristic no-nonsense expression. You young people need to eat, she announced, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. You can't paint on empty stomachs. Behind her came Zoe, the young mother from the transitional housing who had become Anna's close friend, carrying her 10-month-old daughter Mia in a sling. Following them were Roberto and Diane, another couple from the housing program who had recently found their own apartment in the same complex as Anna. We come bearing housewarming gifts, Diane announced, holding up a potted plant, and strong backs for moving furniture. The small apartment quickly filled with activity. Mrs. Chen commandeered the kitchen, reheating the casserole she'd brought, and directing food preparation like a general organizing troops. Roberto took over the painting from Thomas, insisting that his years of maintenance work made him an expert. Diane and Zoe arranged the few remaining unpacked boxes by priority, while the children played together in a corner that had been designated as a kid-friendly zone. Thomas found himself standing with Anna in the midst of this cheerful chaos, both of them watching with amusement as Mrs. Chen debated the proper arrangement of kitchen utensils with Roberto's wife, Carmen, who had arrived with homemade cookies and strong opinions about drawer organization. I didn't expect everyone to come today, Anna said, smiling as Lucas and Mia engaged in what appeared to be a serious conversation, consisting entirely of babbling and occasional shrieks of delight. Of course they came, Thomas replied. That's what community does. The word community had taken on new meaning over the past months. What had begun with the evening childcare program at the transitional housing facility had blossomed into something larger. Parents who had initially connected over shared childcare needs now helped each other with job searches, apartment hunting, and childcare exchanges. The city council had indeed provided funding to expand the childcare model to other facilities, with Anna serving on the advisory committee. a role she had initially been hesitant to accept but now approached with growing confidence. Thomas had found himself increasingly involved as well. What had started as a simple act of helping one family had expanded into regular volunteer work. He'd even adjusted his work schedule to allow for Wednesday afternoon meetings with the Housing Coalition, the community, potluck dinners that had begun in Anna's small unit at the transitional housing facility had become a weekly tradition, rotating between various homes. Tonight would be the first one hosted in Anna's new apartment, hence the rush to finish painting and organizing. Food's ready. Mrs. Chen called from the kitchen. Everyone wash hands and come eat. The group gathered around Anna's table, a second-hand find that Thomas had refinished, crowding together on mismatched chairs and stools. Lily insisted on sitting next to Lucas in his high chair, where she could help feed him small pieces of Mrs. Chen's famous casserole. The conversation flowed easily. Updates on jobs and apartments, stories about the children's latest achievements, plans for an upcoming community picnic in the park. Thomas noticed how Anna joined in confidently, a far cry from the withdrawn woman he'd first met on that park bench 10 months ago. After the meal, as others continued unpacking and arranging, Anna pulled Thomas aside into the small kitchen. "I have something to show you," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. She reached into a drawer and pulled out an envelope, handing it to him. Inside was a letter from the community college, confirming Anna's acceptance into their early childhood education program beginning in the fall semester. "I applied last month," she explained, watching his face anxiously. "I wasn't sure if I'd get in, or if I could manage classes while working and taking care of Lucas. But Mrs. Chen helped me figure out a schedule that might work. And there's financial aid and—" "Anna, this is fantastic," Thomas exclaimed, cutting off her nervous explanation. "You're going to be an amazing teacher." The worry lines in her forehead relaxed. "You really think so?" "It's going to be challenging with everything else, but after working in the childcare program these past months, I realized how much I enjoy it. And with Lucas starting at the subsidized daycare next month," she took a deep breath, "I want to build something better for us, something stable for the long term. I have complete faith in you," Thomas said sincerely. Their eyes met, and for a moment the bustle of activity in the next room seemed to fade away. The moment was broken by Lucas's excited squeal as he successfully escaped the high chair with Lily's help, making a beeline for the kitchen on all fours. Anna laughed, bending to scoop him up. "This one's going to be walking any day now," she said, bouncing him on her hip. "The daycare teacher says he's pulling himself up on everything. Just like Lily at that age," Thomas remarked, smiling at the memory. Once she started walking, there was no stopping her. "Speaking of unstoppable," Anna said, glancing toward the living room where Lily was now earnestly explaining her shelf arrangement philosophy to a politely attentive Mrs. Chen. "She's been such a big part of this journey for us. I don't think I've ever properly thanked her." "You don't need to thank her," Thomas assured her. "She adores Lucas, and honestly, this whole experience has taught her more about community and compassion than anything I could have explained to her." Anna nodded, watching as Lily demonstrated the correct angle for photo frames. "Still, I've been thinking, Lucas's first birthday is coming up next month. I'm planning a small party here. Nothing fancy, just cake and maybe some games. But I'd like Lily to feel like it's her special day too, as Lucas's first friend. She'd love that," Thomas said, already imagining his daughter's excitement at being given such an important role. The painting and unpacking continued into the late afternoon, with people coming and going as their schedules allowed. By early evening, the apartment had been transformed. The walls gleamed with fresh blue paint. Furniture stood in its proper places, and even the small balcony had been set up with a child-sized table and chairs, a housewarming gift from Thomas and Lily. As the group gathered one last time before dispersing for the evening, Mrs. Chen raised her cup of tea and a toast. "To Anna and Lucas and their new beginning," she said with uncharacteristic sentimentality. "May this home be filled with happiness and growth. And to all of you," Anna added, her voice thick with emotion, "for showing us what real community looks like." Later, after the others had left and Lily was helping Lucas build a tower with his new blocks, Thomas found Anna standing on the small balcony, looking out at the sunset. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked, joining her at the railing. Anna smiled, the golden light casting a warm glow on her face. I was just thinking about that day in the park. If you had told me then that 10 months later I'd have an apartment, a job, a college acceptance letter. She shook her head in wonder. I wouldn't have believed it possible. Life can change quickly, Thomas observed. Sometimes for the worse, but sometimes for the better too. Anna nodded, her gaze shifting to where Lucas and Lily played inside. When things were at their worst, I used to wonder if I'd made a mistake keeping Lucas, she admitted quietly. If he might have been better off with a different family, one that could give him stability and all the things he deserved. Thomas waited, sensing she had more to say. But now I see it differently, she continued. The struggle was part of our story, but it's not the whole story. And in a way, it led us here, to this community, to people who care. She turned to look at him directly, to you and Lily. The air between them seemed charged with possibility. Over the months, their friendship had deepened, evolving gradually into something neither had put into words yet. They had been careful, both conscious of the initial power imbalance in their relationship and the importance of Anna establishing her independence. But now, standing in the doorway of her own apartment, seeing the confident woman she had become, Thomas felt the last of those concerns fading away. Anna, he began, but was interrupted by Lily's voice from inside. Daddy, Lucas, come quick. Lucas is standing up by himself. They rushed inside to find Lucas gripping the edge of the coffee table, wobbling slightly but definitely standing on his own 2 feet. His face was a picture of concentration mixed with delight at his new skill. Look at you, big boy, Anna exclaimed, kneeling a few feet away and opening her arms. Can you come to Mama? Lucas bounced excitedly, still holding the table, clearly considering the invitation. You can do it, Lucas, Lily encouraged, positioning herself beside Anna. Just let go and walk. It's easy. Thomas knelt down too, forming a semicircle of encouraging faces. No pressure, buddy, he said gently. One step at a time. After a moment of hesitation, Lucas let go of the table. For one wobbly second, he stood independently, then took one halting step toward his mother before plopping down on his bottom. Rather than crying, he looked surprised, then burst into delighted giggles. You did it, Anna cheered, scooping him up and covering his face with kisses. Your first step. Almost a step, Thomas corrected with a laugh. It counts, Lily insisted. Right, Anna? It absolutely counts, Anna agreed, hugging Lucas tightly. By the moment crystallized for Thomas everything that had changed in the past 10 months. Here they were, celebrating a baby's first steps together, a milestone that might have happened on a cold park bench with no one to witness it, if not for a chance encounter and his daughter's simple question. Later, after Lucas had finally been put to bed in his new room, technically a converted walk-in closet, but Anna had transformed it into a cozy nursery, and Lily had fallen asleep on the couch despite her protests that she wasn't tired, Thomas and Anna sat on the small balcony, cups of tea in hand. It's been quite a day, Thomas said, looking out at the city lights that had replaced the sunset. A good day, Anna agreed. One of many lately. She turned to face him. I've been meaning to tell you something. The social worker from the housing program asked me if I'd be willing to mentor new families entering the program. Be a sort of peer support person. 2 hours a week, and they'd even pay a small stipend. That's perfect for you, Thomas said, genuinely pleased. You've been through it all yourself, so you know exactly what they're facing. Anna nodded. That's what I thought too. 10 months ago, I was the one who needed help. Now I can be the one offering it. She paused, her expression growing more serious. It makes me think about what you said that first night when I asked why you were helping us. What did I say? Thomas asked, trying to remember. You said it was what you'd hope someone would do for you and Lily if you ever needed it. She smiled softly. I didn't fully understand then, but I do now. It's how communities should work, not just everyone looking out for themselves, but looking out for each other. The night air was cool, and Anna shivered slightly. Without thinking, Thomas put his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him naturally, as if they'd sat this way 100 times before, though in truth it was new territory for them. Thomas, she said after a comfortable silence, I want you to know something. Whatever happens between us, and I hope something does happen because I care about you very much, I'll never forget that you saw me when I was invisible. That matters more than I can explain. Thomas turned to face her, his heart beating faster. Anna, A small voice interrupted from the doorway. Daddy, is it time to go home yet? They turned to see Lily standing there, sleepy-eyed and yawning, her hair mussed from her nap on the couch. "Hey, sweetheart," Thomas said, standing up. "Yes, it's getting late. We should head home." Anna stood too, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's cheek with gentle fingers. "Thank you for all your help today, Lily. This apartment wouldn't be nearly as beautiful without your expert arranging." Lily beamed despite her tiredness. "Can we come back tomorrow? I want to show Lucas how to build a bigger block tower." Anna glanced at Thomas, a question in her eyes. He nodded slightly. "How about this?" Anna suggested. "Why don't you and your dad come for lunch tomorrow? I'll make those grilled cheese sandwiches you like, and we can have a picnic on the living room floor since the dining chairs are still drying from their new paint." "A floor picnic," Lily exclaimed, suddenly more awake. "With blankets and everything?" "With blankets and everything," Anna confirmed. As Thomas gathered their things, Anna walked them to the door. Lily hugged her tightly around the waist. "I'm glad you and Lucas aren't sleeping on the bench anymore," she said simply. Anna knelt down to Lily's level, her eyes bright with emotion. "Me too, sweetheart. And you know what? You were the first person who helped us just by asking your dad why we were there. You're a very special girl." Lily nodded solemnly, accepting this as simple truth. "Lucas is special too," she declared. "And you make really good sandwiches." Anna laughed, standing back up. "High praise indeed." In the doorway, Thomas hesitated, aware of Lily watching them with curious eyes. "So tomorrow then," he said, suddenly feeling awkwardly teenage-like. Anna smiled, recognizing his hesitation. "Tomorrow," she agreed. Then, with a quick decision, she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "Thank you for today. For everything." As they walked to the elevator, Lily slipped her hand into Thomas's. "Dad,